Hello, welcome to MJR RPG, a podcast for tabletop role-playing game reviews, replays, etc., so forth and whatnot. The following is a review for Todd Gardiner's The Dead Border, the last of 3 scenarios in Chaosium's Gateways to Terror book. You can read the text version of this review over on mjrrpg.com. The first part of this review is safe for players with minimal spoilers. Midway through, it'll become more in-depth for keepers, so players will be shooed off. In short, The Dead Border sports well-made pre-gen investigators and an extremely concise setting. It is the best suited of the Gateways to Terror scenarios for beginners needing a game to fit into a very tight schedule. The Dead Border takes up 26 pages, including art, handouts, and investigator sheets, with the main scenario text filling 19 pages. As with its sibling scenarios, The Necropolis and What's in the Cellar, The Dead Border is designed for beginner keepers and players, full of plenty of direction and advice. It is also the most concise of the 3, taking place almost entirely inside a single room, and is the easiest to fit into the 1 hour time limit each scenario is supposed to be able to fit into. Its single handout is simple, but still nicely thematic. The map is in the same detailed and colorful vein as the others in the book, showing every object the investigators can interact with in the scene, though not as intricately as the Necropolis's. There are also some insert art pieces that could be extracted and shown to players to get a better feel for the situation. While the Necropolis has the most gameplay of the 3, and What's in the Basement hits more of the beats of a full Call of Cthulhu scenario, The Dead Border has by far the best pre-gen investigators. All 4 have direct connections to the scenario, giving them different personal goals and motivations, some even conflicting with each other, and meaty backgrounds and traits to give new players plenty to chew on. Even players completely new to TTRPGs should be able to get into the role-playing groove, and interplay between investigators should naturally arise. The Dead Border may not be the most investigation-heavy or varied scenario in Gateways to Terror, but it is the best to introduce new players to actually role-playing characters that will interact with and bounce off each other, and is also the easiest to fit into a very tight time limit. The following section is full of spoilers for keepers, so players should probably go away if they're planning to, play the scenario. A simple read-through of the scenario will be enough to run it without issue, and nothing really needs adjusting to play it out as written. There is only one potential issue to keep in mind, and it's an issue that most scenarios will eventually run into, so it's probably for the best to get used to it in a beginner-focused game. The progression of the scenario is very simple. The investigators check in on a fellow boarder for various private reasons, and find the poor guy dead and brutalized. They poke around the room, putting together the lead up to his death. After enough time, the dead man rises as a spooky monster with his face peeled off the skull like an orange. Fighting ensues, and enough bops to the head will kill the thing. Or it'll escape, or the investigators might run away. Players are thrown right into the investigation after an explanation of who they are, where they are, why they're there, leaving the bulk of the scenario to looking around the room. Luckily, there's lots of fun things to see, and figuring out the grisly cause of death, while fairly obvious to anyone who's played a couple games before, is still suitably creepy. The creature is gory, and the fight in the small room should be frantic and blunt. Unfortunately, the mystery of the man's death doesn't really play that much into the solution, and the solution is also very straightforward. Hit the thing in the head until it dies, or let it take its magic book and run away. There is no ritual to undo, no way to trick the creature, nothing but simply hitting it in the obvious weak point until it stops moving, or just giving up. One potential addition could be to have a spell in the magic book that could dispel the creature, but at some great cost that almost ensures an investigator will go insane or be horribly injured. As the titular Dead Border had to carve various symbols into his own body to perform the ritual, maybe the investigators would also have to carve up their own bodies, as well as expend a massive amount of NP or substituted HP to have a chance at banishing the creature. But the main potential issue is if one or a couple of the investigators flee. If all of them flee, it's not much of an issue, and the scenario text gives suggestions in that eventuality. But if only one or a couple flee while the rest continue fighting, those that left are basically out of the scenario. There should only be 15 or so minutes left once the creature actually rises, but it still might be a bit anticlimactic for some players to simply sit in silence and watch the others play out the ending. Of course, the players should be interested in, playing the game, but to avoid this sort of problem, it might be worth going over beforehand that their investigators are not the sort of people to run away from excitement. And if a player is about to leg it, a gentle warning that they'll be running out of the game might help. Or just let them go, dooming their allies to a brutal death. It could still be a fitting ending in itself. If your players are used to combat-heavy games, it's also worth noting that the creature could be taken down in a single round. Its weak point is fairly obvious, and if all the players burn through luck to get extreme successes, especially if the business associate pregen is in play with their gun, the creature will be pulverized before it can get a swing in. If playing with experienced gamers, or players you expect to know how to kill a spooky monster, it may be worth lowering their starting luck to 3d6 times 3 or so, or potentially boosting the creature's dex or HP. While I may overall prefer What's in the Cellar as a full introduction to Call of Cthulhu, and the Necropolis for a more pulpy session that might be what new players are expecting, the Dead Border is in no way the runt of Gateways to Terror. Its pre-gen investigators alone carry a ton of weight, making it the best scenario to introduce new players to actually role-playing a character, and its conciseness makes it the easiest to slip into a constrained time frame. Well recommended. Thank you for listening. You can purchase Gateways to Terror on DriveThruRPG, Chaosium's website, Amazon, or your friendly local game store. You can also find reviews and replays of the other Gateways to Terror scenarios on mjrrpg.com. Until next time, have a good one.